Thanks. Yeah. So today we're going to get into Form 1120S for S corporations. A little background on me: I started my career with the Internal Revenue Service. I'm an attorney and I'm a CPA. And I was a revenue agent. So we went through and we actually did a lot of audits of returns. And that's what I started as. And then got promoted up to national office where I was an attorney at IRS national office. And it's interesting. Before I came over to the good side, having that background, because now, if you think of the typical, how do we prepare a return? We have our tax prep, we have our review, and then depending on the firm, I do a final review or anything like that in your tax quality control system. So, when I first got here, my review function was more of, hey, this is how I looked at it at the IRS. And, interestingly enough, I think the mistakes that we see from an IRS standpoint versus a tax preparer standpoint are a lot different. And to be honest, if I was going to do a top 10 mistakes looking at it from an IRS standpoint, I think it'd be a totally different discussion that we're having. Just to throw out some information, and what I'm talking about is easily the number one mistake looking at S corp and C corp, any business return really. When I was with the Internal Revenue Service, was the balance sheet. I probably want to say 10% of the balance sheets that we audited were actually balanced balance sheets. The other 90% never balanced. So that was always a huge mistake. Another one too to kind of toss out here is the M1. With the M1, that's your book to tax rec. And it's one of the first places we looked when we got a return was at M1 to see if there's any book to tax differences. And usually, almost every business should have a couple. I mean, I can't name a single business client that I have that doesn't have meals and entertainment. So if you automatically see no book to tax reconciliation and nothing on there, well, that's kind of fishy, right? Because, you'll probably should expect at least M&E at the very least. Maybe now parking is one that we don't really see picked up often, and especially in prep, depending on where you're doing it at. It's one too when I start talking to people about hey, there's this deduction that you can't take anymore, or parking. People are like, what? When did that happen? But there is a restriction on parking that we did get, and that's another very common M1 adjustment. So that's kind of it from the IRS side. Now, this one is more my years post IRS, where we're going to look at just, hey, we're preparing returns. 1120S came in. What are some things to do? So while we're looking at like, top 10 mistakes, really this is more of a smorgasbord of corporate tax law. It's really a deep dive into S corps, if anything, and just calling it top 10 mistakes is a good way to kind of be like, hey, yeah,